You guys know that sometimes on the YouTube channel, we kind of go off on a limb on certain topics and different ideas that I will have in my mind. And some of you guys actually give me some of the ideas to talk about in videos that are pretty unlikely to happen in upcoming games or future game ideas and such. But I love talking about them nonetheless because it gets us all talking about stuff. And in this topic of the show, guys, I want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima and a thought that I had about this game. Sucker Punch are the developers of the game, and they are the creators of the Infamous franchise, which, by the way, Infamous is a game that I thought was really well done. Now, I'll say this. You know, the first couple Infamous games I thought were really good, and then it kind of got a little bit, not really oversaturated, but it felt like it kind of lost its touch from the first two games. What I'm going to say, guys, and the idea I want to propose is in Ghost of Tsushima, does Ghost of Tsushima tie, as far as the story goes, does the story of Ghost of Tsushima tie into the Infamous franchise? So let's talk about it, guys. Here's what I want to say about it. Ghost of Tsushima, when we look at this as a game, it looks like it's a standalone game, right? Sony's going to be obviously the publisher, and Sucker Punch with Infamous, those games came out on the PlayStation, and now with Ghost of Tsushima, you've got those coming out on PlayStation. Now, hear me out. When I say in the same franchise, I'm kind of thinking, the idea that comes to my mind is, okay, what does Infamous, if you guys remember Infamous, what did that game remind you of? For me, it reminded me of a couple of games. Number one, it reminded me of Prototype. When Prototype came out, I don't remember if you guys remember Prototype, but that was just like almost like a larger-than-life game. I thought Prototype was awesome, at least the first one. Then the second one was a significant downturn. But Infamous was kind of like that, kind of had that kind of feel, had different abilities and such. What else is Infamous like? To me, it's like Assassin's Creed. And Assassin's Creed, guys, is obviously, all these games are kind of like within that same kind of, open world kind of scope. And one, though, has like abilities where your characters have abilities, whereas with like Assassin's Creed, it was more like had a very intriguing psychological story to it. What I'm getting at here, guys, is couldn't Ghost of Tsushima like take a page out of Assassin's Creed book? And that be like, having some real psychological twists and turns in that game, where it actually is a part of the Infamous franchise in one way, shape, or form. We know with Assassin's Creed, guys, number of times in those games where you're coming in and out of the Animus, right? You're coming back into the real world, and then you're going back in time. Well, with Infamous, I'm not saying that you're getting into an Animus, or you're doing something like that where you're going back in time, but what I'm saying is that, is it possible that Sucker Punch could be merging these two worlds together, that being that of Ghost of Tsushima and Infamous, in a way we don't see coming? Now, it's highly unlikely, and that's why I said sometimes guys on the YouTube channel, we go off on a limb here, and we just kind of try to get conversation going, because Sucker Punch, obviously their last titles were the Infamous games. And I love those games, and I've even talked about here on the YouTube channel about the future of Infamous, how we would love to see the continuation of it. Ghost of Tsushima is a game that very well will be most likely a well-renowned game that people are absolutely going to love. I have no doubt in my mind, at least, that it's going to be a game people absolutely love. The graphics are incredible. The story looks very engaging. But what if there are some twists and turns that we don't see coming? That being like, somehow, some way, this is tied into Infamous. Now, you would have to go kind of the Assassin's Creed route, most likely, somewhere along those lines where you're kind of merging worlds and things of that nature. But do not put it past Sucker Punch to really throw some curveballs in this new franchise. which we don't even know if it's going to be a new franchise. It's a new IP at this point, but could Ghost of Tsushima have multiple games similar to like what Infamous had? And I'm not saying, guys, I mean, we don't really see it much in video games where you have worlds colliding and you know, so on and so forth. Like, you don't really, I've always thought like something that would be really cool would be, you know, like a game developer that owns, you know, a couple of different IPs, kind of merging all those worlds. I mean, like you look at, you know, what Nintendo has done, where they've put like all those different characters into, you know, Smash, right? Super Smash Brothers, and you've got, you know, all these other games, right? That you have characters that you're able to play as, like with like Mortal Kombat. A lot of the fighting games do it, obviously. But I'm just like thinking, man, this would be so cool if Ghost of Tsushima was, you know, somehow tied into Infamous in one way or another. Like The Last of Us being tied into Uncharted. I mean, would that not? Sure, it sounds very far-fetched, and a lot of people love having, you know, there's boundaries here. You don't cross these boundaries. You want to like kind of stay within the same, you know, universe. You don't want to start going outside of it and start kind of introducing those things. But I don't know, guys. I think that it's kind of something to talk about. I always thought like a horror cinematic universe, like where you had like Saw meets, you know, Friday the 13th meets, you know, Halloween, like something like that would be really cool. Kind of like what they've done with Dead by Daylight, having all these different characters in it. Why couldn't they? See, with video games, the imagination runs wild, and there's so many different things that you could do. All I'm saying is, does the story tie in to Infamous? I'm going to say no. I mean, I don't think this is what's going to happen, guys. I don't think that's what the direction they're going in. I don't think Sucker Punch would be plunging that much into this where they're really going to start introducing maybe, you know, they'll introduce like a character near the end of the game or something from Infamous, or they're going to, you know, have like kind of flashbacks and things of that nature, or flash forwards. I don't think they're going to do this, but I find it very interesting to talk about things like this because you just never know what a developer is thinking in the back of their minds. Like, you know, because, yeah, sure, Sucker Punch has said, okay, we've moved on from Infamous. We're not saying that we would never come back to it, but we've moved on at the time being to Ghost of Tsushima. They've got Infamous in the back of their mind. That's coming out of their mouth as Infamous is coming out of their mouth. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, guys, but I would love to hear from all of you. What do you guys think about Infamous being in the same universe as Ghost of Tsushima? Or something of that nature. Somewhat like an Assassin's Creed or something like that. Could it be? Could we have something like that? And what do you guys think of games doing things like that, where they just throw major curveballs and like just have massive plot twists that you don't see coming? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Ghost of Tsushima content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.